think they go forward poorly. And we've, already seen challenges with content moderation before this, especially after Musk actually acquired the site. And so we're going to see a decrease in the ability to control the kind of content that Twitter's own policies say are not allowed on the site.
Well, in the past, Twitter's been an important communication tool for journalists. I guess we could argue it still is. I have to admit, I spend time on Twitter quite a bit. All of this is happening days before the midterm elections in the U.S. How do you foresee Twitter changing under Elon Musk's leadership?
Yeah, I mean, first, just quickly to your point about journalism, we've seen this be so important in journalism. And one of the people who was fired was the director of public policy for both the US and Canada. And this is, again, like you said, days before our own midterm elections. And I think if there's not a course correction, what we see changing is potentially this very central role that Twitter has played in politics and in journalism, not just in the US, but in many countries. And I fear that that's likely further to hurt Twitter's chances of keeping advertisers on, because that's exactly the type of audience that advertisers are trying to reach when they use Twitter as a tool.
Well, you're mentioning advertisers there. Musk says Twitter has a massive drop in revenue since the acquisition because activists are pressuring advertisers. He tweeted, if I'm quoting correctly, extremely messed up. They're trying to destroy free speech in America. So how do you explain what's been happening on the site with advertisers in these recent days?
Well, it doesn't have anything to do with freedom of speech, because none of this is about the government suppression of speech. What it does have to do with is if you're an advertiser on Twitter, just like you are on any other media, you don't want your advertisement to be alongside content that you find distasteful or that your targeted audience might find distasteful. And with everything up in the air about what's happening at Twitter, what's going on with content moderation, and with Musk's own stated vision for it to be a free speech zone, I think advertisers are rightfully being very cautious about going forward.
What about this plan to charge users to verify their accounts? How do you react to that? I personally don't have a verified account. I've never really tried, but this is something that people are reacting quite negatively to.
Yeah, the verification process has gone through many different phases. First, you had to be asked, and they had to choose you. Then there was an application process. Now it's back into some sort of black box about how it happens. Now you might be able to pay for it. But what that means is we can't trust anymore like we a bit do now. That check mark means something, because if it's just available to anyone who can purchase it, all it means then is that you have the funds to do so. It doesn't mean that you've, been deemed to be a public figure or whose, sort of identity has been checked by the platform itself.
Should we expect to see Donald Trump back on the site, do you think?
I'm not really sure. I think if he did that, it would further alienate many, many advertisers and really put this thumb on the scale of the midterm elections if he were to do so, because then the story will, even more than it already is about Twitter, become more about Twitter, but also Donald Trump. And so I think from a business perspective, it doesn't make much sense to do so, especially right now. But it remains to be seen. There's sort of no guardrails around Musk's leadership right now, given how many people he's fired, the fact that there's no board, there's no oversight.
Yeah, this is the question, too. What are his motives here? He's the richest person in the world. He doesn't need the money. He's making comments about freedom of speech. What is in this for Elon Musk?
I have to say, I think it's some combination of his own ego and being upset about the way the site was being run that wasn't the way he thought it would be run, and his inability to sort of let his joke go in what I think initially his idea to buy Twitter was. And like you said, he doesn't need the money. When the site continues to death spiral, if there's not sort of a correction, will he lose interest as we lose interest in him and the site? I think that's the sort of open question going forward.
Do you think people will migrate to other sites? Is that your feeling just in your own sort of personal circle of friends and colleagues?
I mean, I We've seen lots of people do it already, from journalists to other sort of academics that I know in this space, going to other platforms. People are not necessarily tied to a particular platform. We've seen people, move from Instagram to Snapchat to TikTok quite easily. And so it's about the people there and about the power of the collective sort of people there. And that's what's made Twitter so important. But I do think we're seeing people leaving. And just like on any other platform, if there's little or no content moderation, if hateful and harassment and other sort of speech is allowed on the platform, that's not a space most people want to be.
Yeah, it's hard to see how that improves if they're firing half of the staff, especially as the people you mentioned who have those important roles.
Yeah. And so, as I said, content moderation at scale has always been a challenge, but with everyone from policy directors to engineers being fired, I think everyone should be rightly concerned about how the quality of the community and the speech on this platform is going to look like in the coming days.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Shannon.